"Leave the line, Sergeant. Nobody can see a thing out here anyway." The man who said it could not see my face when he said it, and I have always thought that was the whole of him in one breath. He stood 3 feet from a soldier in the dark, and assumed the dark made the soldier gone. He was wrong about that, the way he was wrong about almost everything that night, and I had a long, black hour to learn how wrong before the city's lamps came back and proved it to him in front of everyone who mattered. My name is Brannon Lyle, and on the night the whole of Halewick went dark I stood the second post on the river wall of Meriden Keep, 20 feet from a man named Tomas Wren, who stood the first. I had drawn the river watch for 11 years. I knew the wall in the dark better than I knew my own street, which is a thing that sounds like boasting until you understand it is only the truth of a man who has stood one place 10,000 times. So when every window in the city below us went out at once, not one by one, the way they do at curfew, but all together like a hand closing over a candle, I did not reach for a light. I reached for the rail, and I found Tomas already there, already still, already exactly where he was meant to be. "That's the whole city," Tomas said. He did not say it loud. He never said anything loud. "That's the whole city," I agreed. Below us, Halewick stopped breathing. You have never heard a city go silent until you have heard one lose its light. The river under the wall kept its low talk, and the wind kept its, but the human sound, the hum 100,000 lamps make without ever making a sound you'd name, that was gone, and the gone of it was louder than any noise. I have stood that wall through 3 storms and a flood year and the long night the old Duke died, and I had never heard anything like the silence that came up off the dark streets that night, asking us, all of us on the wall, whether we were still there. We were still there. That was the only answer the post ever gave to any question, and it was the only one worth giving. The river wall of Meriden is not a pretty post. The pretty posts are at the lantern gate and the stair of welcome, where the visitors come and the painters paint and a young guard can feel, for an hour, like the picture of a guard. The river wall is the back of the keep, the working back, the part that holds the water gate and the understair to the old cisterns, and the iron door they call the quiet door, which is the door nobody is supposed to know leads down to the strong room where the keep keeps the things a kingdom keeps when it does not want them counted aloud. The river wall is dark even in daylight, in the shadow of the keep's own bulk. At night it is the darkest line in Halewick. And on the night the city went out, it became the only line in Halewick that mattered, though it would take the rest of them an hour to understand that, and one of them would never understand it at all. Tomas understood it in the first minute. I watched the shape of him, and you do learn to watch a man by his shape, in the dark, after enough years, square itself a half-inch toward the quiet door. He did not draw anything. He did not call out. He simply set his weight so that anything coming up the understair would have to come through him, and he made himself the kind of obstacle a careful man becomes when the lights die, and the one thing nobody can see is the thing most worth watching. "Strong room," he said, the way you'd remark on the weather. "Strong room," I said. It was not a guess. A city does not lose every lamp at the same instant by accident. Lamps fail one street at a time, one ward at a time, the way trouble travels. A whole city closing its eyes in one heartbeat is a hand on a switch, and a hand on a switch is a man, and a man who darkens a city is a man who wants something done where no one can see him do it. We did not know yet what. We knew only that the darkest, least watched, most forgotten line in the whole keep had just become the most important thing 2 soldiers had ever stood in front of, and that we were the 2 soldiers. We did not have long to be sure of it. Boots came up the inner stair behind us, not the understair, the proper one from the keep, and a light came with them, a hand lantern swinging, throwing the wall into leaping orange and then into black again with every swing, which is the worst possible way to carry a light on a dark post, and exactly the way a man carries one when he has never had to stand a post in his life. The lantern came up onto the wall walk, and behind it came a face I knew, and a voice I knew, and a manor I had spent 11 years learning to stand inside of without letting it touch me. It was Master Pel Davorin, the controller of the keep. He kept the ledgers and the keys and the offices, and by his own account, the entire keep upright on his 2 shoulders. He was not a bad man, exactly. I have thought about that a great deal since. He was a frightened man with authority, which is a more dangerous thing than a bad man without it, because a frightened man with authority will always reach for the order that makes the fear stop, and the order that makes the fear stop is almost never the order that keeps the city safe. "There you are," he said, lifting the lantern into Tomas's face so that Tomas had to be the one not to flinch, which Tomas did not. "Both of you. Good. Off the wall, both of you. The whole night's gone to pieces, half my men can't find their own hands, the gate's a shambles, there's a crowd forming at the lantern, and I need every body I can put my hands on down at the front where the people can see them. Nobody's coming up a Black River wall in the middle of a blackout. There's nothing to guard out here a man could even find. Leave the line, Sergeant. Nobody can see a thing out here anyway." And there it was, the whole of him in one breath, 3 feet from a soldier in the dark, certain the dark had made the soldier gone. Tomas did not move. I want to be precise about that, because precision is the only honest way to tell this, and because what Tomas did next was the entire night and the entire man. He did not move, and he did not refuse with his mouth the way a lesser soldier refuses, fast and hot, giving the angry man the fight the angry man came up the stairs hoping to find. He let the silence sit 1 beat. Then he said, very evenly, in the voice you'd use to tell a man the time, "This is the river wall, Master Davorin. I can't leave it on a verbal order." The lantern stopped swinging. In the still orange light I saw the controller's face do the thing I had seen powerful men's faces do 100 times when a quiet soldier declines them, the small disbelief, the recalculation, the dawning of the idea that the soldier had not understood who was speaking. He had understood perfectly. That was the part the controller could not yet afford to know. "I don't think you heard me," Master Davorin said. "I heard you, sir," said Tomas. "The post stands until I'm relieved. The dark doesn't relieve me." I have run that sentence over in my mind more times than I can count. The dark doesn't relieve me. It was the truest thing said on the wall that night, and the controller heard it as insolence, because a frightened man hears every steadiness as a wall raised against him. He took a step closer. The lantern came up again. "Sergeant Wren," he said, and now the warmth was gone and the office had come into his voice, the way it does with a certain kind of man when the easy way fails. He stops asking as a person and starts ordering as a position. "I am the controller of this keep. In the king's absence, in the steward's absence, on a night like this, I am the senior officer of this house, and I am giving you a direct instruction. There is no one out here. There is nothing to protect. There are frightened people at the front gate who need to see a uniform, and you are going to come and be that uniform, both of you now. You can stand a black wall guarding a river, or you can do your actual duty. Choose." It was a good speech. I will give him that. It had a shape to it, the shape of a reasonable man making a reasonable case, and if I had not stood that wall 11 years I might even have been moved by it. But I had stood that wall 11 years, and so had Tomas. And the thing 11 years teaches you is that the post is never about what you can see. The post is about what is true whether you can see it or not. A man who guards only what he can see is a man with a lantern. A man who guards what is true is a wall. "Sir," said Tomas, with respect, "you're right that there's a crowd at the lantern gate, and you're right that frightened people should see a uniform, and if you order men down there from the relief, that's a good order and I'll be glad of it. But the river wall holds the quiet door, and the quiet door holds the understair, and the understair holds the strong room. On the one night in 11 years that no one in this city can see anything, this is the line a careful thief would want emptied. You're asking me to empty it. I can't think who that helps but him." I felt the dark go very still around those words. Even the wind seemed to hold. The controller's face, in the lantern light, did something I did not understand at the time and have spent a long while understanding since. It did not flush with the anger of a man insulted. It went, for a quarter second, the gray of a man caught, and then it filled back up with anger, the loud kind, the kind a man reaches for to bury the gray. I did not know yet that the gray was the truth and the anger was the lie. I only saw a man lose his temper on a dark wall, and I thought, the way you do, well, here it comes. "How dare you?" he said, and now it was loud, now it carried, and that was the first mistake the controller made that the night would make him pay for, because a quiet wall can hold one shouting man for an hour, and what a shouting man never remembers is that a wall has neighbors. "How dare you stand there and lecture me about thieves? You are a sentry. You stand where you are told and you leave when you are told, and you do not construct theories about your betters in the dark. I'll have your post. I'll have your years. I'll have you off this wall in irons and a younger man standing here by morning who knows how to follow an order. Step off the line." "No, sir," said Tomas. 2 words, no drama in them. He might have been declining a second cup of something. And the strange, exact thing about those 2 words, I felt it then and I have never stopped feeling it, was that they were not defiance. Defiance is hot. Defiance wants to win. Those 2 words were cold and they wanted nothing. They were the sound a thing makes when it has been built right and is asked to fall down and simply does not, because falling down is not in it. The controller had come up the stair to push over a tired man in the dark, and he had run into the one thing his whole life had never taught him to move, a man who did not want anything the controller had to give or take. That was when the first of the others came. I did not hear him climb. That is the mark of a Riverwall man. You learn to come up the inner stair without a sound, because 11 years of nights teach your feet the worn places. It was Corporal Aldous Finn, the youngest of us, 20 and serious, who had the 3rd post by the water gate and should not have left it, and I opened my mouth to tell him so. But he had not left his post. He had brought it with him. He came up out of the black and took his place at Tomas's shoulder, facing the same way Tomas faced, toward the quiet door, and he set his weight the way Tomas had set his, and he said to the controller in a voice that shook a little because he was 20 but did not break, "3rd post reports the Watergate secure, sir, and reports the same as the sergeant. The line holds till the relief." "Get back to your post," the controller snapped. "My post is the wall, sir," said young Finn. "The whole wall. That's how the sergeant taught it to me." I will not pretend I had decided anything yet. A man tells you he was sure from the first minute. He is polishing the story. I was not sure. I was a sergeant with 11 years and a pension, 2 winters off, and a wife who had asked me, that very morning, whether this would be the year I took the daytime post at the stair of welcome, the easy post, the safe one. The controller could end me with a stroke of the pen he carried in his coat. I knew that. I felt the weight of it the way you feel a coat soaked through with rain. And I want the men who hear this to know that I felt it. Because the men who never felt it are not telling you about courage. They are telling you about a man who had nothing to lose, and that is a different and smaller thing. I had everything to lose, and I stepped up on Tomas's other shoulder anyway and faced the quiet door and set my weight and said, "2nd post the same, Master Davorin. The line holds." There were 3 of us now, in a row in the dark, facing a door, with our backs to the controller and his swinging lantern, which is the most disrespectful thing a soldier can do, and also, that night, the most respectful because we had turned our backs on the man so that we could keep our faces toward the thing he had come to leave unwatched. For a moment the lantern did not move. I could hear the controller breathing, and then I heard something else far below, down the understair, behind the quiet door. A sound so small that a man with a swinging lantern and a shouting heart would never in his life have caught it. A sound like a key, turning very, very slowly, in a lock that was never meant to turn from the inside. Tomas's hand found my forearm in the dark. One squeeze. It is a thing we have on the river wall, a thing you cannot teach a man who has not stood enough nights, a whole language in the fingers, because there are nights you cannot speak. One squeeze means heard it, two means moving, three means hold. He gave me one, I gave him one back. Down the line I felt young Finn go very still, the good still, the still that is all readiness and no fear, the still we had spent a year teaching him. The controller heard nothing. He was a swinging lantern and a shouting heart, and he heard nothing at all. "You think I won't do it," he was saying. "You think because it's dark and there's no one to see, you can stand there and—" "Sir," said Tomas, and the single word came out of him so flat and so hard that even the controller stopped. "Be quiet, there is a man on the understair." The lantern stopped swinging. For the first time all night Master Davorin went still, and in the sudden stillness the small sound came again, clearer now. The careful, patient, professional sound of a man who has all the time in the world because he has been told the wall above him will be empty. A man working the iron of the quiet door from the wrong side, from the strong room side, from inside, the way no honest man has ever had cause to do. I want you to understand what that meant, standing where we stood. There is no honest way to be on the strong room side of the quiet door at midnight in a blackout working the lock outward. The strong room is not a room a man wanders into. It is a room a man is let into, with two keys and a witness and a name in a ledger in daylight, by appointment. For someone to be on the inside of that door in the dark, working his way out with the city's lamps killed above him, two things had to be true that no soldier ever wants to be true at once. Someone had emptied the city of light on purpose, and someone had let a man into the one room in the keep that is never, ever to be entered alone. And the controller of the keep, the man who kept the keys, the man who kept the ledgers, the man who had climbed a black wall in a blackout to order the only two soldiers in the city who could see this line to abandon it. That man had gone, in the lantern light, the color of cold ash. "That's," he started, "that's nothing. That's the water in the cisterns. That's the wall settling. You're hearing the wall settling, you've stood here so long you—" "Corporal Finn," said Tomas, not loud, not turning. "Down to the guardroom, pull the bell cord twice, slow, then once. That's the river wall muster every off-watch man this wall no lights. Then back up to me. Go." "Sergeant," said Finn, and was gone down the inner stair so quietly that the controller, 3 feet away, half turned and said, "Where is he going?" to a space where a man had just been. "He's calling the watch, Master Davorin," I said. I said it kindly. I have wondered since why I said it kindly, to a man I was by then fairly sure had let a thief into the strong room and tried to clear the wall above him. I think it was because I am a sergeant, and a sergeant's whole trade is to be the steady thing in the room when other men are coming apart. And the controller, for all his office and all his keys, was a man coming apart in the dark, and the steady thing in me reached for him out of habit before the rest of me had finished doing the arithmetic. Every off-watch man on this wall is going to come up that stair in the next 2 minutes in the dark, the way we're all taught to, and they're going to stand this line with us. So whatever you came up here to make happen tonight, it isn't going to happen. There are about to be more of us than there is dark." "You don't understand," the controller said. And here is the thing I will remember of him to the end of my life. The anger had gone out of him, all of it, the whole loud lie of it, and underneath was the gray, and the gray was speaking now, fast and low and almost pleading. "You don't understand what's down there. You don't understand what I owe. There are men I owe, and they came to me, and they only wanted one night, one dark night, and they swore no one gets hurt. They only take what's owed. And if you just gone down to the gate like I asked, no one would ever, it would have been a power failure, just a power failure. The city's old, the lamps fail, who could ever say?" He had said it. In the dark, to 3 soldiers and a turning lock, the controller of the keep had said the whole of it, because the dark he had counted on to hide his crime had become, instead, The dark a frightened man confesses into when he finally understands that the steady wall in front of him is not going to fall down and let him pretend. "I know," said Tomas, gently, "the way you speak to a man on a ledge. I know, sir. You're going to stand right there now, and you're going to be very quiet, and when this is over you're going to tell the steward exactly what you just told me, and that's going to matter that you told it. But right now I need you to stand still and let me do my post. Can you do that?" The bell rang below, twice slow, then once. And the river wall of Meriden Keep answered the way it has answered for 200 years, the way it answered when the old duke died, and the way it answered the flood year. Not with lights, not with shouting, but with the sound of men coming up a dark stair who do not need a light to find a place they have stood 1,000 times. They came up out of the black, the off-watch of the river wall, 6 of them, 8, 10, in shirt-sleeves some of them, half-dressed, dragged from their cots by a bell cord and the oldest instinct a soldier owns, and not one of them carried a lantern, because every one of them knew that a light on the river wall tonight was the one thing that could lose it. They did not ask what was happening. That is the thing about a watch that has been built right over years. When the muster rings, you do not come up the stair asking questions. You come up and you find your sergeant by his shape, and you take the place beside the man already standing, and you face the way he faces, and you become, the moment your boots stop, part of a thing larger than any one of you, a thing the kingdom has been quietly building one tired night at a time for longer than any man on that wall had been alive. "Quiet door," Tomas told them low, as each one took his place. "Man on the understair, strong room side, working his way out. We hold the wall and we hold the door and we take him clean when he comes through. No lights, no noise. Nobody goes down those stairs into the dark to meet him. We let the door do our work and we take him in the open air where we can see him and he can't see us. Pass it down." "Pass it down," came the murmur man to man down the dark line. "Hold the wall, hold the door, take him clean." And below us, behind the iron, the slow lock gave its last turn, and the quiet door began, with the smallest groan of a hinge that had not opened in a year, to move. I have to tell the next part carefully, because the next part is where a story like this usually goes wrong, where the tired soldier becomes a hero with a hard jaw and there is shouting and a struggle and a man thrown down a stair, and none of that is what happened, and none of that is what a guard is for. A guard is not for the fight. A guard is for the line. The fight, when it must come, is the smallest and last thing he does, and the better the guard, the smaller and last it is. The quiet door opened onto the wall walk from the understair, and a man came up out of it. He came up the way a man comes up who believes the world above him is empty, easy, unhurried, a long canvas roll over one shoulder heavy with the shapes of things that do not belong to him, a dark cloth over his face, a small shuttered lamp in his hand, not yet unshuttered because he had been promised by the controller of the keep that there would be no one on this wall to see a light. He came up into the open air and he stood, for 1/2 second, in the very middle of 11 soldiers he could not see, and he had no idea at all. He found out the way the night meant him to find out. Tomas did not shout. Tomas reached out in the dark and closed one hand around the canvas roll where it crossed the man's shoulder, and held it, did not pull, did not wrench, simply held the way the wall held, so that when the thief took his next step the weight on his shoulder did not come with him and he was, for the first time in his careful life, stopped without knowing by what. He spun. He swung the shuttered lamp where a man's head would be. And he hit nothing, because the man he swung at had already stepped, in the dark, to the place the swing was not, the way you can only step if you have spent 11 years learning the exact size of a wall walk with your feet. Then there were hands on him from every side, calm hands, a dozen of them, no blow struck, no cry, only the quiet, overwhelming arithmetic of 11 men who can see in the dark closing on one man who cannot, and in 4 seconds the thief was on the stone, face down, held, the canvas roll lifted gently off him and set aside, the shuttered lamp taken from his fingers before he could even think to open it and ruin us all with a light. He never landed a blow. We never landed one either. There was nothing to land. The wall had already won the moment the wall had refused to be empty, and everything after was only the slow, sure folding up of a plan that had depended, from the first dark instant, on the river wall being a place where nobody stood. "Take him to the guardroom," Tomas said. "2 men, no lights till you're inside and the shutters are drawn. The rest of us hold." And we held. That is the part I want the men who hear this to sit with, because it is the part that is hardest and least like a story. The thief was taken. The roll was recovered. The thing the night had come to stop was stopped, and we did not stand down. We held the dark wall another 40 minutes, in silence, in the cold, facing a door that no longer had anyone behind it, because a soldier does not hold a post until the danger is gone. He holds it until he is relieved, and we had not been relieved, and the dark, as Tomas had said at the very start of the whole long night, does not relieve a man. So we stood. The controller stood with us, between 2 of my soldiers, not held, not bound, only kept, shaking, saying nothing now, a man watching the last hour of the life he had known. And then, far out across the city, a single window came back to light. Then a street of them, then a ward. The lamps of Halewick came up out of the dark the way they had gone into it, not one by one but in great sweeps, a hand opening off the candle it had closed, and the city we guarded climbed back up into the light below us, window by window and street by street, until the whole bowl of Halewick lay glittering under the wall again, alive, unrobbed, never once knowing, most of it would never know, how close a thing it had been. Or that the only reason it woke up the same city it had gone to sleep, as was that 2 men had refused to leave a place where there was, in the controller's words, nothing to see. And as the light came up the river wall, it found us. It found 11 soldiers standing in a row in the cold, half of them in shirt sleeves, every one of them filthy and exhausted and exactly where he was meant to be, facing an open iron door with a recovered canvas roll laid at their feet and a thief in the guardroom, and a controller of the keep standing gray and small among them. The first real light of the returning city came up the wall and showed us to ourselves, and I will tell you, I have stood that wall through every weather and every grief Halewick has known, and I have never seen anything finer than the line of men the lamplight found that morning, who had held a thing in the dark that no one had been there to see, and held it not for the seeing but because it was true. The relief came up the inner stair as the sun started to gray the river. The captain of the keep, old Maddox, came with it. They had found him at last, somewhere in the chaos of the front gate, and someone had told him enough to send him at a run to the one wall everyone else had forgotten. He came up onto the wall walk, and he saw the open quiet door, and the canvas roll, and the controller, and the line of his Riverwall men standing the dark post in their shirt sleeves with no lights, and he stopped, and for a moment the captain of the keep could not speak at all. Then he did the thing I will carry with me longer than any other thing from that night. He did not ask what had happened. He did not call for a report. He stepped to the head of the wall walk, and he came to attention, an old man stiff at the joints, and he saluted his own sentries, the whole filthy, exhausted line of us, before he said one word, because he had walked up that stair already knowing, the way old soldiers know, what it costs to hold a thing in the dark and what it means that it was held. We straightened, and we returned it, and for one breath the only thing on that wall was 11 men and a captain giving each other the only thing a soldier has that cannot be taken or bought, and the controller of the keep stood off to the side and watched it and understood, I think for the first real time in his life, what he had spent the night trying to talk a man out of. What came after came fast, the way these things do once the light is back and the powerful are awake. By full morning the steward of the keep had the whole of it. The thief talked, that kind always talks, once the dark is gone and the deal is off, and the canvas roll, opened and counted on the steward's own table, held things from the strong room that had no business being above ground, listed against debts in the controller's own ledger in the controller's own hand, Debts to men no controller should ever have owed. The blackout was no failure. A bought lampman at the city works had thrown the great switch on a signal, for a fold of the take, on the one promise that no one would ever be able to prove a city's old lamps had been killed rather than simply died. It would have worked. That is the part the steward kept coming back to, Gray himself by the end of the telling. It would have worked. A power failure, just a power failure, the city's old, who could ever say. It would have worked but for two men on a wall who would not leave a place because they could not see it. And here is where I tell you the part that makes this not just a story about three soldiers and a thief, but a story about the thing the three soldiers belonged to. Because the river wall did not stand alone that morning, any more than it had stood alone in the dark. The steward sent for the captain, and the captain told it plain, and the steward did not say well done and send us back to our cots. He stood up from his table, and he sent word to the master of the watch, and to the lord of the household, and up, all the way up, to the high officers who run the keep when the king is away, and the word he sent was not a thank you. The word he sent was a question, and the question was the right one, the one Tomas had asked on the wall in the dark before anyone with rank had thought to ask it. How is it that one frightened man, with one office and one set of keys, could very nearly empty the one wall that mattered on the one night it mattered, with nothing but his own voice and his own authority? And the answer the high officers gave, by that same afternoon, was the answer that tells you a house is sound at the root even when one branch of it has rotted. They did not just take the controller, they took the whole question apart. By the second day, there was a new order written into the standing book of the keep, in plain words any sentry could read. That no post on the river wall, nor any post holding a strong-room door, may ever again be cleared on a verbal order from any officer, of any rank, in any emergency, that such a post stands until it is relieved in person, by name in the muster book, by the next man sworn to it, and that the dark, the storm, the flood, the fire, and the word of any single frightened man, however high, do not relieve it. They wrote Tomas's sentence into the law of the house. Not his name, Tomas would not have his name in it, and the captain knew better than to try, but his sentence, the true thing he said to a swinging lantern at midnight. The post stands until I am relieved, and the dark does not relieve me. That is what the system rallying looks like when it is real. It is not the convoy at the gate and the trumpets, though I have seen those and they have their place. The truest rallying is the quietest, a great house, woken to how close it came, reaching down to the one wall that held and saying, "You were right, and we are going to make it so that the next man does not have to be as stubborn as you were to do what you did." The strength of a kingdom is not in the one good soldier who refuses the wrong order in the dark. The strength of a kingdom is in whether the kingdom in the cold light of the next morning stands behind him, or hangs him for insolence and writes a younger man's name on his post by noon. Hailwick stood behind him. I have served houses that would not have. I know exactly how rare and how precious it is that mine did. As for Master Peldavorin, I will not make a monster of him, because he was not one, and the night is truer if I do not. He was a frightened man with authority who reached, in his fear, for the order that made the fear stop, and the order that made his fear stop would have robbed the house he was sworn to keep and blamed it on a dead lamp. He was led down off the wall in the gray morning a smaller man than he had climbed it, and he never came back to the keep. And the last I heard of him, he was somewhere south and quiet, an old man living on the small mercy that he had in the end in the dark, when the wall would not let him pretend any longer, told the truth. Tomas had asked that of him, "Tell the steward what you told me, that's going to matter," and he had done it. And I have come to think that the one decent thing the controller did that whole black night was the thing a soldier coaxed out of him by being too steady to lie to. There is a mercy in a wall that will not fall. It does not only stop the thief. Sometimes it stops the frightened man from becoming the worst version of himself, by simply refusing to give way until he runs out of lies. We went back to the wall. Of course we did. There was a relief due and we were owed our cots, but the next night the watch came round again the way it always comes round, and Tomas drew the first post on the river wall, and I drew the second, 20 feet apart in the dark, the way we have stood 10,000 nights, and young Finn had the third by the water gate, and the quiet door was locked again, double-keyed and witnessed and quiet again, and below us the lamps of Halewick burned steady and ordinary and unknowing, and it was, in every way that a man with a lantern could measure, a night with absolutely nothing to see. I have thought a great deal since about what the controller said. Nobody can see a thing out here anyway. He meant it as a reason to leave. He never understood that he had said, by accident, the exact and entire reason to stay. The posts that matter most are almost never the posts anyone is watching. The ones at the bright gates with the painters and the visitors, those guard themselves, half the time, because the whole world has its eyes on them. It is the dark line, the back wall, the forgotten door, the place where nothing ever happens and no one would ever know. That is the post that holds a kingdom up, precisely because no one is looking. Any man can stand straight when the crowd is watching. The whole of what we are, the entire meaning of the still figure in the dark, is the man who stands exactly as straight when the lights are out, and there is, as far as anyone can ever prove, no one there at all. Tomas put it better, the way he put most things better on that next quiet night, when I asked him, half joking, the wall being dark and dull and safe again, whether he ever thought about the easy post at the stair of welcome, the one in the sun, the one everyone sees. He was quiet a while. Then he said, everyone sees the man at the bright gate, Brannon. Nobody sees the man on the dark wall. That's the difference between the two posts. He shifted his weight, the small old sound of a soldier settling into a place he has stood 10,000 times. And that's why the dark wall is the one that has to be true. I have stood the river wall many nights since, and I will stand it many more before my years run out, and a younger man takes the place where I have stood. And on the dark nights, the nights when there is nothing to see and no one to see it, when the easy thing would be to lean on the rail and let the post go soft, because who truly would ever know, on those nights I hear the whole of it again, the swinging lantern and the gray confession and the bell ringing twice and once, and the sound of men coming up a dark stair without a light to find a place they had stood 1,000 times. And I straighten, and I face the door, because a wall does not hold for the seeing. A wall holds because it is true. And the dark, whatever any frightened man may tell you on any black night to come, does not relieve us.